big re-signs for WWE, but unfortunately several stars released to follow. What's going on, guys? Travis Fowler Harkrider back with another edition of Tights and Turnbuckles. So let's just jump right into it and talk pro wrestling. The weekly reviews, let's highlight some of the bigger topics of it, which is the fallout from the Royal Rumble. Jey Uso and Charlotte Flair both showed up on the two big shows, and Charlotte showed up on NXT to talk about what title they're going to choose for their respective WrestleMania matches. Charlotte, of course, has made it very clear that she does have some options to her, and the Rhea Ripley three-peat for WrestleMania matches is on the table. Julia is a little intriguing, but not by much. Of course, I have stated, and many have talked about it already, we want Stratton and Flair for the women's title, and I think that will be the ultimate direction we end up going. It's just going to be interesting to see who will be the face and the heel in this dynamic, because you saw the promo on Friday from both ladies, and both are kind of playing up the heel card, so one of them's going to have to show more of the face and good side of them. So I don't know which one they're going to go with. Most of people, like myself, are going to think it's going to run on Tiffy Time being the face in that, and I think that's the way to go. But we'll see how that plays out. We'll talk more about SmackDown here in a little bit, but let's go back to Monday Night Raw. Jey Uso's getting several great reactions. I still don't understand why all of a sudden the fans are starting to turn on him, or I should say some fans are turning on him. Guy gets great reactions, and I think people really try to read too much into the moves of professional wrestling, because it doesn't matter that Jey might be a little limited in some of his offense. He has a crowd connection. This is no different than when Daniel Bryan got the crowd behind him. It's no different than anybody who's ever had this surge of popularity. The only difference this time around is WWE is capitalizing on it in the right way. They could have done this with Matt Cardona back when he was Zack Ryder and had that big fan support. We know what they did with Daniel Bryan, now Bryan Danielson, and the Yes Movement. So maybe this new WWE is starting to learn from its past mistakes. Now, again, we saw them actually go through with Bryan Danielson and Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30, but Zack Ryder is arguably a missed opportunity that they had served up to him on a silver platter. But again, this new WWE seems to want to right the wrongs of their past mistakes. And Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble and now having his shot at a championship at WrestleMania, I didn't see it coming. I didn't even think he would be in the Final Four, much less the Final Two, with John Cena nonetheless. But that's what happened, and subsequently ends up winning the Rumble to a great reaction. So I think that's awesome. Congrats to WWE and Jey Uso, who has been busting his ass since the pandemic era, and this surge of crowd support is going to lead him all the way to the main event of Mania, and honestly, I think it's going to lead to his first world title, and rightfully so. Meanwhile, on Raw, we saw Penta pick up another win, and that caused a sneak attack from Ludwig Kaiser since Pete Dunne showed up. I wonder how that's going to end up playing out. Logan Paul arrived and already was getting massive heat, and it looks like he's going to start a feud with Rey Mysterio to start. It is going to be interesting to see what his role in WrestleMania is going to be. I've talked to a few people that said they'd love to see Paul and AJ Styles, which seems to be a marquee match that could be made now that Styles has been moved over to Monday Night Raw. Only time will tell. Again, we still got, what, is it like 2 months until Mania? 2.5 actually. So there's a lot of time. A lot of things can still happen, and either way, I'm interested to see what Logan Paul does, because whether you like the guy personally or not, professionally, you can't take away from the fact that he has been money since stepping foot inside of a wrestling ring. Then, when it comes to the Elimination Chamber, we had 2 people qualify on Monday Night Raw. Liv Morgan qualified for the Women's Elimination Chamber match, followed by CM Punk beating Sami Zayn to get his spot in the Men's Elimination Chamber match, which already featured John Cena. So already you had Cena and Punk as 2 of the 6 participants, which is awesome already, and we would learn of another entrant inside that chamber on SmackDown, which again we'll get to momentarily. But after the match took place, Sami Zayn suffered a beatdown from Kevin Owens, who finished him off with a package pile driver. And this goes right into what I was saying a few months back, where I would really put money on Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn having a program at WrestleMania this year. I unfortunately thought it would be for the championship, and I think WWE really missed their opportunity to put the title on Owens. As much as I'm a Cody fan and I enjoy his title reign, I honestly think Kevin Owens winning the title in the ladder match would have been the better decision, just so that there was some stake between Owens and Zayn. But I understand that might complicate things with the Jey Uso situation, so I don't know. Right way, wrong way, doesn't really matter. This is what we've got, and I look forward to seeing how Zayn and Owens mix things up this time around, being that they're going to be on a big stage of WrestleMania in a one-on-one situation. This is going to be quite interesting to see how they play out this feud that honestly dates all the way back to their Ring of Honor days. Then we move over to NXT, where Cora Jade came out and destroyed the 3 participants in the Triple Threat Women's title match. That took place because of Charlotte Flair cutting her promo against the 3 participants. Cora has had some issues with her friend Roxanne Perez not really having her back. Could this lead to an eventual fatal 4-way? We know Cora's been showing up over on not NXT, TNA as of late, going up against Masha Slamovich. We'll see how that plays out, but looks like Cora's trying to stake her claim to both championships on both brands. So props to her. Her character work has always been pretty good. I, like many others, think maybe the in-ring work still needs a little bit of fine-tuning. Overall, though, I don't think she's terrible. So I enjoy her as a character overall, and I think eventually when her and Roxanne can put their whole differences aside and maybe unite as a tag team, bring them up to the main roster and have them be the, quote, mean girls, as Vic Joseph likes to say on NXT. Let them run with that gimmick on the main roster and get the tag titles. That would actually be kind of a fun thing, in my opinion. Also on NXT, we saw JDC, better known to WWE fans as Fandango, make his return and challenge Lexis King for the Heritage Cup on this week's episode of NXT. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Will we see the first title change hands from an NXT to a TNA guy, or TNA guy to NXT? This week, we might actually see it. So we'll see how the Heritage Cup goes. Lexis King also declared that the old rules for the Heritage Cup are no longer active. Don't know how I feel about that. I kind of liked the difference with the Heritage Cup and what it brought to the matches. So now that it's just going to be relegated to a one fall to a finish like every other championship, I really don't see the need to have the Heritage Cup around much longer anyway. You've already got the secondary title with the North American title. So I thought the Heritage Cup was a nice change of pace that was brought over from NXT UK, and now you're taking away what made it special. I don't know if I agree with that. In the main event, A-Town Down Under picked up a win over the makeshift team of Obafemi and Trick Williams after interference from Eddie Thorpe, who put a beat down on Trick Williams after the match. Interesting to see how this is playing out. Trick Williams, who I believe is still the rightful number 1 contender to the NXT title and deserves a one-on-one with Obafemi. Again, I know he kind of already had it, but that was still technically a triple threat match with all 3 of them back when they had that NXT title on the line. And I want to see a one-on-one between them. But I like that Eddie Thorpe has become a big deal and is becoming a good heel over on NXT. So big things I think are going to be expected of Eddie from this point forward. He's a big-time player. It seems like they're running with him. So let's see what he makes of this opportunity. Over on SmackDown, we saw Jey Uso come out and Cody Rhodes came out to congratulate him. They were pondering over what's going to happen. Is Jey going to end up choosing Cody? We know that there's a relationship there. There's been bad blood that turned to good. And is this going to be part of the WrestleMania main event? Only time will tell. But they were interrupted by one of my favorite teams currently, the team of Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu, who's been on a roll on his own right. That led to a beatdown, which constituted a tag team main event match that saw the return of Solo Sikoa in the main event. Is this going to lead to Solo and Cody for the title at Elimination Chamber? That's my guess, but only time will tell how they continue this story going into this week's SmackDown. But we do know Solo is back. It looks like the triad of Solo, Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu is back in working order. Also on SmackDown, we saw 3 people qualify for the Elimination Chamber, 2 for the women's, as a matter of fact. Alexa Bliss, who is officially on the SmackDown roster and had a little bit of some glitches during her match. Not in a bad way, obviously, for those that know what I'm talking about. I think we can assume what's going to happen with Bliss here in just a little while. But she is in the chamber, along with Bianca Belair, who will also be in the Women's Elimination Chamber. This upcoming week, Naomi, her tag team partner, gets her chance to join the chamber. So that'll be interesting if Naomi does win. How is that going to affect the two of them going into the Women's Elimination Chamber match? Then we saw the Street Profits cut an amazing promo. Literally, I am giving every props to them because I want more of this version of the Profits. Give me a serious, not necessarily heel version, but a serious Street Profits. I can get behind that. Looking forward to seeing how this plays out in the tag team scene, which Pretty Deadly picked up a big win over DIY. So this is going to be fun. I think this is amazing that the tag team division is getting a rejuvenation, and it's brought a lot of interest. So I look forward to seeing what goes on moving forward with the WWE tag team title scene on SmackDown. And finally, the other person that qualified for the Elimination Chamber was through a triple threat match with Jimmy Uso, LA Knight, and Drew McIntyre. By the way, LA Knight delivering a great promo that led right back into getting his jabs at Drew McIntyre was phenomenal about mental health. Jimmy Uso, who has really been pulling out the stops as Big Jim, as they're calling him, dude can promo. Like, anybody who doesn't think he's a good talker, which I don't think there's been any kind of discourse on there, but what I will say is I think Jimmy Uso has stepped up his game since going out on his own, and he's going to be something to keep an eye out for in 2025. It will not surprise me if we see Jimmy Uso make that turn into a big-time singles star by the end of 2025. But nevertheless, Drew McIntyre picks up the win in the triple threat. He is also moving on to the Elimination Chamber match. So far in the men's chamber, we are halfway through the field of filling out. Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, John Cena. Pretty good start if you ask me. Moving over to AEW. AEW actually had some good showings this past week. It's actually been the first good AEW week where I can't really criticize a whole lot. Outside of the whole Death Riders thing, which many people like myself are kind of tired of, but it is what it is at this point. They've had some good stuff. The timeless Toni Storm impersonation of Mariah May was the absolute highlight for me this week. It was a flawless rendition of Mariah May. And I'm telling you, best storyline they got going on in AEW right now is those two. Then we saw the Gun Club come back and start mixing it up with the Hurt Business. I am a fan of Austin and Colton Gunn. Glad to see them back. I know they're going to get fed to the Hurt Syndicate, but it is what it is at this moment. The AEW Tag Team Champions are on a roll, and who knows, with the recent releases that we'll talk about here in a little bit, we might see the full reunion of the Hurt Syndicate in about 90 days or so. Then we saw Adam Copeland, or as he's just called Cope, and Jay White issue a challenge to Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli for Grand Slam in what he called a Brisbane Brawl. I hope I said that right. I feel like I'd said that wrong, but either way, basically an anything goes Texas Tornado type of style match, and that's probably going to get made official for Collision in Grand Slam Australia this upcoming week on Saturday nonetheless. The main event of Ricochet and Swerve Strickland was really good. I gotta give props to both guys. I know I've even said Ricochet seems to be doing another rendition of the Ethan Page character in NXT right now. That said, it's still working for him. He's still doing a good character work. I'm not going to take that away from him. And his match with Swerve as the main event this past week on Dynamite was superb. The finish was chef's kiss all the way around. Glad to see that they did what they did to kind of mix it up a little bit, and Ricochet getting the win. Good job there. Mark Davis has officially joined the Don Callis family as he took on Will Ospreay. That's going to be interesting to see how they utilize Mark Davis moving forward. Do you reunite him with Kyle Fletcher, even with Fletcher being on this role right now? Only time will tell how they plan to utilize him, as United Empire, or in this case, Aussie Open of United Empire, is once again a full unit in the Callis family. How will that be utilized? We will see if Don Callis combines them back together to be a dominant tag team in his family. When he's already got the two big guys of Brian Cage and Lance Archer, the Murder Machines, I actually like that team too. So there's a lot that you could do with the Callis family. Looking forward to seeing what goes on there. Over on the Collision side of things, Megan Bayne showed up and attacked Thunder Rosa after she picked up a win over Penelope Ford. I'm interested to see what they do with Megan Bayne now that she is officially signed to the AEW roster. Also, we saw Hologram return. Say what you will, I guess they're going to put some stock behind Hologram. I don't know why you're doing that when you had Penta and Rey Fenix for so long, but now they're marketing the Hologram masks. Should have been doing that with Phoenix and Penta. Don't know again why you didn't, but nevertheless, hopefully you're learning from mistakes and starting to capitalize on merchandise for your luchadors. Harley Cameron gets her match finally with Mercedes Moné after a great back and forth promo, and I don't think she's going to win it, but the fact that she's getting this TBS title shot against Mercedes in her hometown, good work there. Looking forward to seeing how they do this in Collision's Grand Slam next weekend. Then over on the TNA side, Joe Hendry had a celebration concert for his TNA title win along with his Royal Rumble appearance that was interrupted by Jake Something. They will face off this upcoming week on Impact for the world title. Unfortunately, Something did get injured earlier this week as he had to forfeit one of his championships for, I believe it was DPW, Dallas Pro Wrestling, or something along those lines. I saw the report come out just yesterday, so hopefully he has a speedy recovery and we'll see him back on TNA soon. Savannah Evans picked up a win in the Battle Royal, and she will face Masha Slamovich this upcoming week for the the TNA Knockouts Championship this upcoming week on Impact. And Ace Austin defeated Tyson of Wesley's new faction, and while they tried to get the beat down on Ace Austin, the Rascals came out. I know there's eventually going to be a 6-man tag here involving all 6 of the competitors, Wesley and his new group, along with the Rascals and Ace Austin. Look forward to seeing that here down the line. And then we saw Josh Alexander challenge Eric Young for one last match, his goodbye match in TNA. I don't know if that's happening this upcoming week or if it'll be here in the next couple of weeks, because we know Alexander's contract with TNA is coming up if it isn't already, and he's going to enter the free agency market. So looking forward to seeing what ends up happening in his career. And the Hardys and Slater picked up the win over the System, as well as Santana defeating Matt Cardona, the new standard of TNA, being Mike Santana, picks up a big win there. And Fraxium retained the NXT Tag Team titles over Nick and Ryan Nemeth. I am very interested to see what they do with the Nemeth brothers moving forward in TNA. Now, let's move into some of the 2 big news topics that we were discussing at the beginning of the show. Yes, indeed, Alexa Bliss and Kevin Owens have reportedly re-signed with WWE. Kevin Owens for a 5-year deal, and Alexa Bliss is reportedly a similar deal, a 5-year deal. I'm glad that both WWE and Bliss were able to work out whatever differences there may have been. Again, after her appearance in the Rumble, they said that she took the Shotzi spot because everything happened quickly, and there was a photo online that showed Shotzi in the background in the locker room. Looks like that kind of corroborates with that story. So I'm glad either way that this was able to be settled, because Bliss is a good name, good worker. I gave my opinions and thoughts on her strong-arming the company for more money. Again, we don't know the details, and even prior to that, this was all just reported speculation. So either way, it looks like it's worked out for both parties, so props to both. Glad Bliss is back, and again, over on SmackDown, I think it's just a matter of time. We saw the statics during her match. I think we're going to see Bliss reunite with those Wyatts sooner rather than later. But the biggest news that came out of this weekend started on Friday. The releases for WWE, it looks like they have started early. The spring cleaning has already taken place. And these are the names that were announced as released from the company. Cedric Alexander, the Authors of Pain, along with Paul Ellering, Sonya Deville, Blair Davenport, Isla Dawn, Giovanni Vinci, and one that disappointed me the most was the Good Brothers. I very much enjoy the Good Brothers, and I was telling a buddy of mine I was really hoping for eventually a reunion of the original Bullet Club founding members, that being Finn Balor, Tama Tonga, and Carl Anderson, to make one big faction at one point in time, like maybe something along the lines of Finn Balor, who's seen himself as the leader of Judgment Day. Maybe you get JD McDonough back after he comes back from his injury, and then you start weeding out everybody out of the Judgment Day to reform it in your own vision, which would be the Good Brothers coming in. You could somehow maybe lure Tama away from the bloodline, and if you didn't want to do that now, you could hold off on that until later. But then you've also got AJ Styles in that mix as well. So you could recruit Styles as part of your new Judgment Day faction. Eventually, it could lead to a power struggle between Styles and Balor in a real story situation that would give us the rematch of Finn Balor and AJ Styles from TLC. I believe that was 2018. That would be a fun story to really dive into. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to see that. Another disappointing one on the female side was Blair Davenport and Isla Dawn. They're two women that I think are very talented from the UK scene. I think both are still going to be just fine, especially Blair Davenport, who used to compete under Bea Priestley, so I'm sure she'll be just fine. And I'm very much a proponent of people checking out TNA. So maybe these two could use that fresh coat of paint and move over to the TNA roster to up their Knockouts division even more, because I think both would be a great addition over there. And I said earlier and alluded to maybe we're going to see a reunion of sorts in 90 days. The release that interests me the most is indeed Cedric Alexander. He is the fourth and final member of the original Hurt Business that is now over in AEW as the Hurt Syndicate. I remember thinking when they were coming up with the Hurt Syndicate for AEW, I was like, man, if only Cedric hadn't just re-signed with WWE, which was reported to have taken place last year. I was like, man, if only they hadn't just done that, he probably could have been over there and they could have done the whole Hurt Syndicate in its original form in AEW. Well, now we don't have to worry about that. All we got to do is wait 90 days, and according to some reports in Fightful, it looks like there's already been a push for Cedric Alexander to make, at the very least, an appearance in AEW. Some speculate this may not happen because of the personal history of Cedric Alexander's wife, Big Swole, and her past issues with Tony Khan. Will that play a factor? Possibly, but I don't think it's going to be as big of a factor as people are taking that stake on. It will not surprise me once these 90 days come up, and I hope I'm right on this because I, again, would love to see it. Cedric Alexander showing up on AEW Dynamite and reuniting with his Hurt Syndicate brethren. Let's go ahead and reunite the original group and let's see what they could really do. A lot of people wanted to see that in WWE because the Hurt Business was one of the best things during the pandemic era. I believe that, as well as many others. I would love to see what the original Syndicate could do as a whole unit, even in AEW, because I think it would mean big business for both AEW and those four individuals. Well, guys, that's all I got for you this week. What do you think about the proposition of having the original Hurt Business, now Hurt Syndicate, in AEW? Do you want to see it? Let me know in those comments down below, as well as what do you want to see some of these people that were released do next? Do you think we have some show up in TNA? Maybe some go to AEW? Or is there somewhere else you think they're going to wind up? Let me know in those comments down below, as well as any predictions you got about the Elimination Chamber. I love interacting with you guys, so even if you don't want to talk about those topics, throw some other stuff my way. I love talking wrestling with all you guys. I'll come back again next week with another edition of Tights and Turnbuckles as always. Until that time though, y'all have a great week. If you're watching the Super Bowl, I hope you enjoy it. Myself, I'm not, because I don't care for either team. Can't root for the Eagles. They go against my Cowboys because we're in the same division. And the Kansas City Chiefs, I think might actually get the three-peat if, there's a little bit of a officiating going their way. But that's enough football, and that's enough of TNT this week. God bless y'all, and y'all just continue to love pro wrestling.